The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and are not those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. The phone lines are open. Call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788. That's 220-WSTU. It's time for Stuart Laser Talk with your host, Dr. Tred J. Rizacker.
I'm 5'10" and 242 pounds.
I always say this is the biggest I'm ever going to be, and I said that like 20 pounds ago.
A third of Americans are obese, another third is overweight.
Obesity is the biggest threat to the health, welfare, and future of this country.
I've always been overweight.
I've got diabetes,
Sleep apnea, heart disease.
everything's hurting now.
It's a lot easier to lose weight than it is to keep weight off.
This is probably going to be the first generation of children who are going to have a shorter life expectancy than their parents.
18% of our children right now are obese.
It's not only health, it's about survival and well-being of the United States as a nation.
You don't crave broccoli, and our generation has grown up craving a Big Mac.
I want to think that there's something better for me.
Unless we're able to control this epidemic, we're going to have an abundance of chronic disease.
All of us have to be part of the solution to reduce obesity.
The weight of the nation is out of control, but we can fix that.
If we don't now take this as a really urgent national priority, we are all going to pay a really serious price.
Obesity will crush the United States in oblivion.
Good morning, Stuart, Florida. Good morning, Treasure Coast, and good morning, the world. My name is Dr. Tred Rizacker, and I am going to be your host here for the next hour on my Slim Body Laser Spa Health and Wellness Show. I can be heard every Tuesday from 9 to 10 o'clock right here on WSTU 1450. That's an AM station located in Stuart, Florida. You can also get this online by just typing in WSTU.com radio or something similar to that. And you can look at the shows. They all get posted online. And my own show, you know, if you put my name, Tred Rizacker, Dr. Tred Rizacker, you will see a lot of the stuff that I've done, and you can see those shows. I want to reach out to some people that have contacted me from my wonderful past. We had a great time growing up here in South Florida. I moved here in 1972. I was 12 years old, and some of the friends I made are now on Facebook. And it's been like, they ask me, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I'm like, so this is kind of like a cognitive test. When you're 60 years old and you're asking if you remember somebody from 47 years ago, you're like, boy, you gotta jar my memory a little bit, you know? So I just want to reach out and say hi to those people that have been contacting me. I've been a lot more active on Facebook lately, and that's great. I also want to give a shout out to Scott. I see he's watching. Mr. Trevison, know his sister very well. And today's going to be a show of hope and a show of some really good information that you might need. It's kind of like having, when you go out in the ocean, and, I like to do boating. I go out to the Bahamas. I do tuna fishing. I've been out for the sword fishing. And I had a few bad experiences in the ocean where I wasn't prepared. Things broke. I drifted, and I was lucky that somebody heard our calls and was able to assist us to get us back to land. And I never forgot that. And I never, ever go out in the ocean without being completely connected. Above and beyond what most people, I go out with other people, and sometimes they just don't have the safety equipment that's necessary. And I shudder. I won't even go with them because I know what happens is you might need help. And you can't assume you're going to get help out 60, 70 miles offshore. So I'm very prepared for that. And so maybe it's something that I take very seriously in my own life. And what I'm starting to understand about healthcare and about your responsibility about health is that it is your responsibility to maintain your health. It's not anybody else's. And you can't assume that anybody is going to take as good a care as your health as you would, right? Just makes sense. Yet, for some reason, when it comes to the most important thing that you have, the most important asset that you have above and beyond your house, your car, your family is your own health. Without your health, you don't have anything. You're gone. And they have to fend for themselves. So why would you trust that to other people and not your own common sense? And so that's kind of what my message here is today, is to put onto prioritize your life. And one of those priorities needs to be your health. Straight up. No BS here. It's really, really important to understand this and own this. You know, when I do a talk to somebody and I'm discussing their health and different issues, one of the things I ask a person is, where would you put your health if you were, what on a scale of 1 to 10, how much effort would you put into getting over this problem? To you, how important is it from a scale of 1 to 10? If they tell you anything less than an 8, I mean, you're in trouble. You got someone who is not taking care of their health. Now, they might think their job is more important or going, paying their insurance. But I promise you, if you don't have your health, those things are going to go away very, very fast, and you'll be useless to nobody, and so that's why we're going to give you this message today. All right. So you know what I do. If you've just tuned in, welcome to the Slim Body Laser Spa Health and Wellness Show. And I want you to know that I have a non-invasive, FDA-cleared, low-level laser device. Okay. We now call it photobiomodulation. And I love that term because what it's saying is that they are using light, which is what photo means. It's light, to change and activate cellular systems, to modulate, not therapy, but when you apply light to people's bodies in a certain, controlled way, and light, of course, is what you see when you look up at the rainbow and you look out into the sky. That's visible light. Well, there's also some invisible spectrums, things that you can't see with your eyes. And one of those is near infrared, infrared, and far infrared. These are 3 wavelengths. But they're part of the rainbow. When you see the sun and the rain come through, and you see that rainbow. Boy, there was a beautiful rainbow the other day, and off the river about a week ago, that rainbow began in the middle of the St. Lucie River and went right over the top of the Roosevelt Bridge. If you're standing by the hospital, now typically when I see rainbows, they're kind of off in the horizon, behind whatever the land is. This one was right in the river. I mean, I could have reached out and grabbed it. It was enormous. And it was really very brief. It only lasted about 2 or 3 minutes. And I'm a light guy. I'm a doctor that uses light to help people to heal, to feel better, to lose weight, to body sculpt, to get rid of pain. And when I saw that light, that was like, I was like a kid at a candy store. I loved it. Kevin, just want to say, hey, buddy, I see you there. And that light, to me, when I saw that rainbow, I thought that's healing. That's the healing light that God provides for us. And we have figured out through technology and through intelligence to capture those different wavelengths, which are called colors: blue, green, red, yellow, near infrared, far infrared, and utilize those by applying them to your body in a way that's beneficial and healing, without drugs, without surgery, without any kind of downtime. It's really quite amazing. We know that they can grow hair if you have hair follicles. You got to have some to start with. It won't work on somebody who's completely has no hair follicles. We know that they can reduce pain and inflammation. That's the cold lasers you see, the pain lasers. We also know that they're very good at It's stimulating circulation. They can bring heat and warmth to the area. But what they're finding out is that they can impart red light and near infrared wavelengths are very beneficial at feeding the body with photonic energy that will help. Hey, sis, how you doing? I see you just come on. It's my sister's watching over there in Tampa, Tony Rissacker. So, and that light can then activate your cells. And just like a plant can absorb the sunlight and create with chlorophyll, that creates a starch, which we eat, and that gives us our energy. Your cells can respond to small amounts of photonic energy, and it activates and starts those cells working and functioning at a higher, in a better way. In other words, it's like a switch that turns things on. And this makes a lot of sense. If you go back 100,000 years ago, the sun was there, and your ancestors woke up to the sun, went to sleep when it was dark, and they stared up into the light in the morning, and their digestion was improved. They decided they were hungry. They rested. They detoxified. And what they've proven is that these things come from the sun, from light, and they're called the circadian rhythms. Yet somehow we've stopped utilizing light in that way. Now we use it in a very artificial way, in a house, inside a building. We don't use the full spectrum. We hide from light. We hide from sunlight. We wear glasses. We wear clothing. The doctors tell you that sun is a risk, that you're going to get cancer from it. And too much of anything is a risk. Yet, so we're actually devoid, and we're starving for sunlight at these right times, at these specific times. So my suggestion is every morning, get up if you can, and get out and watch the sunrise, and face the sun early in the morning where it's a yellow and a red spectrum. And this spectrum is very nurturing and healing to your body. It slowly starts up your metabolism. It helps you it develops your hunger, your appetite, because it's morning. And that's the way that the sun activates this. You have little receptors in your eyes, deep in your eyes. They're photoreceptors, not the ones that allow you to see. They activate by sunlight, and then they go back into your brain and they start turning on these motors and these systems. Deep infrared wavelengths, the sun, when you feel the heat, that's going into the skin 2 and 3 and 4 inches. You have receptors in your skin and in your muscles, which also take that light and start those systems going, and they activate the tissue cells. Red light applied to fat cells causes them to activate. And that activation, I found out, is actually causing the fatty acid to be squished out, to be released. Just like, like a muscle cell would. They didn't know this 10 years ago, 20 years ago. They thought fat cells were just mindless containers that held fluid. What they found out is that fat cells have mitochondria in them. They have organelles, and they're active. They can be activated, and they're activated by sunlight, by red spectrum light. And this is a fact. If you lived closer to the equator, you're going to have less body fat than if you live closer to the North Pole or the South Pole. In other words, if you're in a colder environment, you need more body fat because you're going without food as often, and it's a lot colder, and you are farther away from the sun in the northern hemispheres. People that live around the equator in the temperate zone, they get a lot more sunlight, and there's a relationship between why they don't carry as much body fat. That is amazing. The other thing they have found out is that people that live in the northern, closer to the poles and the away from the sun, they also run higher blood pressure than those that live closer to the sun around the equator. So 10 years ago, I was introduced to a machine called a Lapex BCS lipolaser. It's a non-invasive red light device, which has diodes in it, and it produces light in the red light spectrum called 628 nanometers, which is red light, and it's at a 40 milliwatt power, which is very, very low. You apply this to the skin, and the fat underneath that, after 8 to 10 minutes, it activates the cells, and there's a whole mechanism which is involved, which causes the cells to dump their contents, to release the fat. And then what happens is, as long as you haven't eaten 2 hours before or 2 hours after, you can burn and absorb that energy, and it gives you energy, and you reduce inches, and you don't make new fat. This is from light. And, to see this 11 years later at the Slim Body Laser Spa, I knew the first year that this was a superstar procedure that was changing lives. I could see it because it worked. It was like, oh my God, this guy lost like 6 inches laying on his back with a red light. I thought you had to exercise and diet and hit the gym and suffer. I thought you had to have injections and amphetamine and food, food Nazi restriction. This thing worked whether people were drinking, whether they had eaten too much. It didn't matter. I was floored by it. Now, I have come to understand that nutrition deals with a different part of the fat, the inner fat. We're really dealing with the outside fat. But when I saw that, I just knew it had more to it than what I was seeing or understood about it. And now, 10 years later, the research is out. The scientific studies are starting to be mainstream. And red light therapy is absolutely going to change the world. It's going to change health. It's going to change healing. They even have used red light therapy to help a person heal from COVID-19. Okay, and COVID-19 can be an inflammatory lung condition. They can get exudate, which is called pneumonia, in their lung field. The only treatment for pneumonia and lung infection is antibiotic therapy. And they do it with an IV, very powerful. Well, what they did and these are 5 or 6 studies. They are studies. They're still anecdotal, meaning they're not proven with double blind, but there's enough information to show that this really worked. What they did is they took people that were in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that had been diagnosed with pneumonia secondary to COVID, and then they applied the red light to their chest 3 times a week for 2 weeks. That's it, 20 minutes. And what happened was, as a result of that, their lung infection cleared. It cleared the lung fields. And after 2 weeks, when they redid the x-ray, you can see the difference. It's clear. And then they had, so I went and it was a study that was in the National Institutes of, the PubMed and Public Medical. And I went over and I looked at the doctors and I Googled their names, and they had tons of stuff about this. And it showed a paper where they actually put the red light on the back by the shoulder blades and in the front 3 times a week. And these guys, this is a surgeon. There was another guy that was an infectious disease. These aren't quackadoos. These are very legitimate people. So that was exciting. So if you're understand that this laser gets rid of fat and it reduces the circumference, and we help you to get rid of those calories so you can be healthier and take charge of your health. Don't trust or rely on anybody else to do that. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a really quick break here. I guess I should tell you my phone number. It's 772-223-5885. My name is Dr. Tred Rissacker. I own the Slim Body Laser Spa. The easiest thing to do is to just get your Alexa or your little cell phone and go, Dr. Tred, Slim Body, and you will come up with my phone number, my name, my addresses, my complete criminal record, which is none, hopefully. Because everything's on the internet nowadays, and God knows if it's even truthful. But anyway, we love and appreciate you. We'll be back after this break.
Now back to Stuart Laser Talk here on WSTU 1450. And back to your host, Dr. Tred J. Rizacker.
Ooh, let's get that microphone back. Hey, everybody, I'm back. Dr. Tred, Slim Body Laser Spa. Free consultations. We have openings today. The staff is standing by. I'm also offering a free body fat analysis and also to determine your resting caloric intake so you can be successful at losing weight on your own. You know, if you come in and maybe you're not ready to sign up, things are tough in your life. And I always give a good education at my consultation and give you some tips that you can bank on right away so you can start losing weight on your own. And then when things change, you can always come on in and use the laser as an assist. So the laser assists in weight loss. It doesn't make people skinny. It helps you get rid of the fat, which is on the outside of the body, the stuff that you can under your skin, you know, not on the outside, under your skin in front of the muscles. And that would be the stuff that you can squeeze, you know, the subcutaneous fat under your chin, under the arms, which I don't have any, subcutaneous around the belly. I do have some of that. And in 9 sessions, 9 30-minute laser sessions in 3 weeks, you can reduce those pockets of fat from 1 to 5 inches, literally laying on your back, relaxing. It takes 30 minutes on the laser, 10 minutes on whole body vibration, eat better, drink more water, and you'll be a big fat loser very, very simply. Each visit for the beginning plan, if you've never been into the office, is $300 a session. We have 9 sessions is our minimum plan to start. So that's about $2,800. And we guarantee a 3-inch loss results. We are doing some free giveaways. If you sign up, you get an extra week. Just say that you heard me on the radio. We do have help with financing, with Care Credit. And, you know, we rarely turn down somebody over if they need to make payments on it, as long as they're an honest, reasonable person. So come on in. You give us a call. You can go online and log in. My email is slimbodylaserspa@gmail.com. You go to my website on the contact page, it goes right to my staff. They'll send you a link for you can book me. It's an online booking service that you can select the time without having to speak to the staff. Hey, the only time is not your friend when it comes to weight loss. Okay. You got to do this thing. All right. So let me put on my concerned hat here. Okay. I am really, really concerned about this SARS-2 COVID-19 pandemic, you know, and everything that's happening with it. Everybody has, you know, I was listening to NPR yesterday. I couldn't believe the stuff they were, you know, broadcasting about the infection rates, about what's going to happen, you know, 3 months down the road. They had this public announcement about Thanksgiving, that we shouldn't have Thanksgiving together, basically. You have to limit it to 10 or more family members. They actually said that you should bring your own plates, knives, forks, silverware to any Thanksgiving dinner you're going to, your own, you know, and that you should bring your own ketchup packets and mayonnaise packets. So you're not getting from the main bottle there. Don't ever grab food from the bowl, you know, yet, you know, this just is a slap in the face to proper hygiene, you know, to cooking food, to maintaining a temperature. When you serve food, you wouldn't want to serve cold chicken that sat out on the desk. You know, you want to heat it up. You should have, you know, these are common sense hygiene practices. You know, you want to make sure that the silverware you had was washed in a dishwasher or used hot water. There's no COVID on that. And that you wipe them off, you know. The other thing is if you're, you know, a healthy under 50-year-old person that has nothing going on, you're not a problem. You don't have to worry yet. You know, this is really for people that are older and people that have allowed their health to slip. They have to be much more cautious about about becoming a host for viruses, for bacterias, for parasites and worms too. It isn't just COVID. There's a whole host of stuff that's out there trying to get into your body. And your immune system, your innate immune system and your adaptive immune system fight and defend you every single moment when you're sleeping, when you're coughing, when you're breathing. You have this incredible immune system, which is fighting and protecting you. It is more effective than those doctors and every medication they've ever come up with. There's nothing more effective than your own body's function, your ability to function. And with that said, health is really a very, to maintain health and wellness involves some very simple steps. I would tell you that it's nutrition, the law of movement, moving and exercising daily, eating the right foods, rest and recuperation, having a good, healthy rest cycle and recuperation. Don't push yourself so much that you get run down and haggard and tired. You'll get sick. And the other one is cleanliness, internal and external cleanliness, keeping your body free of germs and dirt and poisons that you accumulate on your skin and your clothing, changing your bed sheets. These are more important than wearing masks. I promise you. Your bed is full of bed bugs, they tell us, if you don't change your sheets often. And, you can get all kinds of illnesses just from not really having good hygiene. And if you're not moving around enough, if you're not exercising regularly, and that means walking, swimming, moving your arms, playing, whatever you have to do to get some movement to raise your heart rate. I use a whole body vibration plate. This is what's really going to help your body to circulate and to circulate the food into your system and to help get rid of toxins. And then you want nutrition, and that means proteins, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, and stay away from processed food. If it came out of a box, if it has a shelf life of 2 weeks, it's probably processed food, and it's bad for you. And it creates poisons that build up, and your body gets a little bit of nutrition from it, but then the waste system has to get rid of it. And, these are simple things, yet we seem to throw caution to that. We don't seem to do that. We don't want to change our habits. We're also eating way too much sugar. Okay. And sugar is, someday they're going to go back and look at sugar as a poison toxin, which has to be limited in foods and in everything. There is no limit to sugar in foods. I was working on my rebuilding a motor yesterday, and I enjoy doing that in my shop. And one of my neighbors came over just to talk. And he brought over a soda, Coca-Cola, and he brought over an energy drink and a bottle of water. And I told him, I said, all I want is the water. I don't want the soda or the energy drink. And he's like, well, he was a little offended. He goes, well, why not? I said, well, dude, it's full of sugar. Well, is that a problem? And I pointed to it, and that energy drink had 38 grams of sugar in it. That means 15 teaspoons of sugar, or maybe tablespoons. I forget. It's half. That's an enormous amount of sugar in a drink that's like 12 ounces. And then, of course, the soda was up to 28 grams plus a bunch of chemicals I don't want. And he says, well, I'll just leave him here with you. And I'm like, I'm going to use him to remove the paint off of one of these parts. That's what I'm going to do with that stuff. Yet, do you know how much soda is drinking every single day? How many people drink soda? Incredible. That is a problem. So, what happens is, as a result of our lowered resistance to diseases and sicknesses from being overweight, not exercising, eating processed foods, we have created a situation where we're vulnerable to viruses, parasites, and bacteria, more than a culture that is maintaining a better weight. Now, these are not my statistics. This is, the statistics of health and wellness. It's not okay to carry weight around. because it really, really is probably one of the number one causes of inflammation, of arthritis, of low energy, of of having a high inflammatory molecules is weight. So with that said, there's a lot of help out there. And it's one thing we do is we get rid of weight and we help people with their health. But I want to go over this COVID thing that's happening right now. And one of the issues that came up to me is that I understand the importance of masking and social distancing and protecting others and yourself from spread. And when you look at the basic science behind treating of diseases, there is a protocol that doctors follow, not the governments. The doctors follow these protocols. Now, when the government is involved and big pharmaceutical companies are involved, things seem to get a little crooked, angled, weird. I don't want to say crooked in a criminal way. I just mean there's a lot of people pulling at your ideas and your beliefs of what they want you to think you should do if you're sick, because they all benefit. If I can get you to come into my facility before you go to another facility and you have insurance, then it's going to help my bottom line and my shareholders and all the people that depend on my services. And it might not be your best choice to go. I use this example in the chiropractic office. It was there for years. And I would tell a person, just because your insurance pays for it does not mean it's a good idea, right? They say, well, I'm going to go where my insurance covers it. I'm going to go with my insurance. Well, wait a minute. Just because your insurance pays doesn't mean it's a good idea for you to do this. So what happened is there's been a push and shove between the doctors and the medical community, and also the CDC and the National Institutes of Health, at least in America. It's been very, very obvious that they have two veins of thought, two areas that they're fighting against each other. And I side on the side of doctors that actually practice medicine. I will always side on the person who sees patients every single day and has a better idea of what's happening and has all the tools that they learned in college and from their colleagues to treat these situations. Medicine has hacked us into these, everybody should get one pill. Everybody should get one medication. Everybody should get an anti-inflammatory. Everybody should get an antidepressant. Everybody should get cholesterol med. And again, as I've told you many times on these talks, we are very different people. We have different genetics, different backgrounds, different situations. Some are more compliant with health than others are. Some need more help. Some need less. And you just can't paint everybody with the same brush. It's foolish. In fact, it's criminal. Because if you're somebody who is, I'm okay with vaccinations and medication if it was to protect me. I don't want to get sick. And I look at my situation. Maybe I have comorbidities. Maybe I have breathing issues. Maybe I'm in a high risk group. I would want that vaccine. But what they're doing is now they're wanting to give it to people that are not in high risk groups, people that are very healthy, under the belief that that vaccine will protect them from hurting other people, from harming other people. Now, think about this. We have children that are, young kids are being recommended for this vaccination. Children don't die from COVID. Okay. I mean, they just don't. I mean, there might be a very small infinitesimal amount that could, but for the most part, it's less than 0.0001% of people in their youthful years, under 25, that would ever have something happen from this. and they want to give them a vaccination which has less than 2 months of study. 2 to 3 months of its studying. They studied 30,000 people, and from that 30,000 people, there was only like 300 or so that they actually were able to say had COVID, and they could measure their blood work. I read it. I studied this. It was the Moderna vaccination. And so what they said is instead of waiting 5 years, which most vaccinations require 5 years of study to see the safety, that they would change it, this warp speed thing. And they're saying that, well, we'll just study a larger group of people. In other words, instead of taking a small group and waiting 5 years, we'll triple the size of the study. And that will offset the fact that we're only going to do it for the 2 or 3 months. That doesn't make sense. Now, here's what happens. If you want to study the safety and the efficacy of a vaccination, you have to wait for people to get exposed before you can see how it works. So this isn't rocket science. You can all understand this. So in other words, if I come up with an idea, a vaccination or a drug that I say is going to prevent this disease, yet I have to prove that it prevents it, I need people with that disease to test it on, right? Does that make sense? And ever since the Nuremberg trials, where they used to do medical experimentation on people without, they made them sick with the disease, and then they gave them a treatment to see what worked. We felt that was not normal, that was wrong, and that's a world crime. So the Nuremberg rules of infection and testing drugs does not allow you to infect somebody willingly and then test something on them. So this is a problem for these people that are pushing this agenda, So the way it used to work, or the way it should work and should still work this way, is you would inoculate 30,000 people or 10,000, and then you would wait 5 years to see if they were infected by just living, In other words, if the virus is out there and it's infecting people, those 10,000 people that had the inoculation within 5 years will have been infected, some of them. And then they check them for antibodies. And from that information, they can say how they did to it. But that's not what they did here. They took 30,000 and they tripled the size of the study. I don't know, 30, 60, 120,000 or so. And then in 2 to 3 months, they pulled out 200 or 300 that were infected. And then they checked them for antibodies. And when I read the study, and it's in the internet, I'm not making this up, it showed, a certain amount were white, a certain amount were Hispanic. There was like 4 African Americans. There was 10 Asian. And then from this information, they said that it's safe. It's 94% effective. Think about that. You need to know this information. You need to understand what's happening here, that this isn't the same way it's ever done, and my feeling is you have something which has been shown that it can be treated at home before it ever gets to that point. So that's why I'm hollering about this. That's why I'm here giving up my valuable time where I would want you to come into the spa and get rid of your fat loss to try to educate you about this, because I know this is going around the world, this talk. So let me tell you a little bit about viruses, what I know. A virus is a particle of DNA which requires a host to replicate. It's dead on its own. If it just lays on the counter, it has no life. It cannot replicate on its own like bacteria. It has to go into a host, which is a body. It has to inject itself into the cell, and then it replicates copies of itself. And what happens is, if your immune system if you're a healthy person, and your immune system is working, your immunities fight the inflammatory portion. They're not going to stop the replication. They're going to fight the swelling of the lungs. Your body's going to reduce your body can still breathe deeply because your lungs work properly. And then what happens is in about 2 weeks after the virus infects you, you develop antibodies through what they call the adaptive immune system. So the innate immune system is your skin, it's fever, it's mucus, it's the white blood cells that go to the area that fight inflammation. And that's the first line of defense. And as the cells are now, what happens is in a week or two, it goes to the adaptive immune system, which is where you develop your antibodies. And then you're good. Your body can fight this infection, and it makes a memory of those antibodies. So the next time you're exposed, you have an immunity to it. That's called herd immunity. So this is very important. The virus does not kill people. It's the inflammatory response when you're infected that kills people, not the virus. Because if the virus killed everybody, then every single person that tested positive should be dead, right? There is another factor here, and it has to do with their body's immunity and their response to inflammation. And that is a fact. You know, if you take the 22-year-old or the 50-year-old who tests positive and he doesn't have any symptoms, and they say he's infected with COVID, sounds normal to me. We all have antibodies and have been exposed to all kinds of germs and pathogens and parasites and viruses. We have dealt with it our whole existence, and our bodies have fought it and have built immunities to it. And if we were to test you, you would find that you have those antibodies for these different things. It's part of called normal health. Now, what happens is this COVID, when it first attacks a person, first goes into somebody, in some people, they can have a severe acute respiratory syndrome. They can suffer with a very acute inflammatory response from that COVID virus right away. That's why they call it SARS, sudden acute respiratory syndrome. That means this isn't your normal cold virus. It starts out kind of slow, and you get a little mucus, you get a little cough, a little fever, and then your body's okay. You know, this isn't the flu, which is also can be very mild in the beginning. This seems to have a ability to attack your lungs, your brain, your blood vessels, and your, and it can happen really fast in some people. And this is why I'm telling you this, because this is really important to know that medical doctors have the tools to reduce that inflammatory response. They have drugs and therapeutic agents to treat the inflammation, not the virus. We don't have a drug to treat the virus, but we do have drugs to help you with breathing problems called prednisone. We do have drugs that help you with infections called azithromycin and doxycycline. These are antibiotics, AZT, DOX. We also have drugs which are antiviral, hydroxychloroquine, including ivermectin and another drug. These drugs treat the inflammation, not the COVID. And here's what happens, people. If you can treat the inflammation as it first occurs within 1 to 3 days, and you get on these meds and you can treat the inflammatory response, and you can get through that, in 2 weeks, your body's going to build antibodies to this freaking virus. And you'll be good. And does that make sense? Yet, let me give you another analogy. Yet, what's happening is the CDC and the National Institutes of Health, they're not telling you this. They're telling you to go home and isolate, to sequester yourself. And if you're sick, go to the hospital. Oh my God. I got it right here. Here it is, CDC. I just printed this today. People what do I do if I'm sick? This is what it says. People who are sick. So what you need to do is people who have COVID-19 and are able to recover at home, they should isolate. And here's what they should do. Stay home except to get medical care. But they don't tell you what medical care is. Monitor your symptoms. Here's what you have to do. If you have an emergency warning sign, including trouble breathing, oh my God, you know, when does that happen? The first day, or is it 5-6 days later when you're almost, you know, you think you're dying? Seek emergency medical care immediately. That means go to the hospital. Here's number 2. Stay in a separate room from other household members if possible. Isolate. Use a separate bathroom. Avoid contact with other members of the household and pets. Do not share personal items like cups, towels, and utensils. Wear a mask around other people. So they're telling you if you have COVID that you can wear a mask and you're okay. It says that's insane. Confirmed and suspected cases of reinfection. When can you be around others you've had or likely had them? So this is something which is incredibly bad guidance. There's a very, this doesn't really tell you. Here's another one. What to do if you're sick. So if you test positive and you're sick, they tell you to keep track of your symptoms. Write them down. Yeah, big deal. Hey, Chuck. If you have an emergency warning sign, including trouble breathing, get emergency medical care immediately. So that means go to the hospital. Stay home except to get medical care. You're going to hear this again and again. Now, here's what they want you to do. Here's what I suggest. There is a paper here called the Guide to Home-Based COVID Treatment. And what this states is that if you are a younger person under 50 and you do not have any symptoms, you have no comorbidity, and you test positive, you could probably go home and wait it out and see how you feel. If your symptoms get worse, you want to call your medical doctor. Don't necessarily go to the hospital. Okay. And that's, the hospital is not your medical doctor. They don't do palliative care. They put you into the acute care. And unless you're really sick. So what they're saying is if you're over 50 and you have a comorbidity such as, pulmonary disease, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, or obesity, that you need to immediately call your doctor, your home care doctor, and ask them if they will prescribe home care medications for you. Okay, I'm not telling you to make these decisions on your own. What I'm telling you is if you're 1 to 3 days into this and you're starting to have symptoms or you have a comorbidity, you want to call your primary care doctor and say, listen, I know I can't come into the office, right? They don't want you in the office. I don't want to go to the hospital yet unless I'm really sick. Can you prescribe home care medications for me, such as the antibiotics, the prednisone, and the antiviral drugs? Okay. This is a common sense, rational approach to COVID. Remember, you're treating the inflammation while your body is building the immunity to this disease through the antibody system and the antigens. If you can lessen the inflammatory response and not let it get sudden acute respiratory, you'd probably be okay. But to think that you can go home and drink chicken soup and sit in a room all by yourself and not have contact with anybody in your house until it becomes an emergency, that's a recipe for death. I mean that. So I called my doctor and I asked him, what do I do if I test positive with COVID? He says, well, doc, if you're asymptomatic, don't worry about it, which I have diabetes. So that was his first mistake, but he didn't know that. He doesn't know this stuff. And I says, well, what if I have a positive test and I'm symptomatic? Then he said, I will prescribe the home care recommendations for you. And one of them was the hydrochloroquine, whatever. I've said it so many times, I get it mixed up, but you know what I'm talking about. So, this is important information to know. It's on my website. If you go to the back page on it where it talks about COVID, you want to have fresh air right away. You want zinc sulfate, vitamin D, and then the antiviral agents, including the AZM and dioxycycline. I don't want to give recommendations on the air like this because it would be foolish. Everybody's different. You need to talk to your doctor about this. This is not something that I can help you with, but you want to make sure that your doctor has a copy of this. It's called A Guide to Home-Based COVID Treatment. This is from the Association of the American Physicians and Surgeons, and this is a group which is talking about this and is trying to get people to understand this. His name is Dr. McCullough, and he is the man. He's the one you want to go find out because he's the one that came up with all this stuff I've been explaining. So I love and appreciate you all very much. If you want more information, shoot me an email. I'll send you a link to this. Easiest way to do that, Slimbody Laser Spot, Gmail. I just hope everything turns out well for you. Just remember, it's up to you to take care of your own health. You can't leave it up to other people. All right. And I think we're about out of time, huh? See you next week. God bless you all. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.